everybody, and welcome to episode 59 of All About African Violets. All About African Violets is musically sponsored by Ted Yoder. You can hear and purchase his awesome music on his website at tedyoder.com. Hi everybody, come on into my sunroom. Come on in and have a seat. It's not sunny, it's late in the evening, and I am recording a little bit early this week. I have a house full of company coming this weekend, and I want to spend my time with them, but I have some good things in store for you, so I hope you'll enjoy this episode. Well, we're going to jump right into tips and treasures because there was a great question that created excellent discussion today out on Facebook on the AV Nerds website or group. Let me get my glasses. Let me read this to you. And this is great. Jane posted this and she said, "My sassy sister sported or reverted." She said she lost her sass. "She's bloomed twice and there is no pink, just white and green blossoms. It's pretty, but it's not sassy. So my question is, if I put down a few of her leaves, will the babies be sassy sister with the correct blossom or the sport that she has become?" Well, this was a great conversation. All kinds of people chimed in, and I shared that in my experience, there are I thought of two at the time, but I've since realized there's a third that I'm aware of plants where you can put down a leaf and you can get one or the other. And it's a very interesting thing. And those pairs are Irish Flirt and Sassy Sister. You'll remember earlier this year I had a leaf of Sassy Sister, and I put it down and I got Irish Flirt. And unfortunately this has happened to me like a million times, and Irish Flirt is one of my least favorite plants, but I love Sassy Sister. So you can put a leaf down and it can come up either way, and it's crazy, but there it is. So I knew of that pair, and I knew of the pair of Everdena, which is a Hans Impine plant. It's a little, I think it's a semi, it may be a mini, and it's a fantasy, and that's Everdena. But if it comes up for you and blooms without the fantasy, then it's Mickey Mouse. And the third one that I realized is in my basement because it's doing the same thing, is Frozen in Time and Frosty Frolic. So you can put a leaf down, and if it comes up with the white blossom with the green edge, it's Frozen in Time. Or it comes up with the lavender blossom with the green edge, it's Frosty Frolic. Well, I can't tell you how many times I've tried to grow Frosty Frolic, and every time I get Frozen in Time. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but it's not what I wanted. So I paged Joyce Stork to the discussion to ask, if she had more info. And what she said is kind of different. And what she said is, it's really rare for a sport to return to the original cultivar color. Kent remembers Miss Pretty going solid pink and then coming back. In that situation, there's probably something that triggers one expression of color over the other. It would be similar to a Geneva edge trait expressing itself in cool weather, but not in hot weather. I think that most of the time when a hybrid sports to a new color, it is actually a stabilization of the genes, nature repairing a problem, and the sport is more likely to come true to the sport than to mutate back. So I thought that was interesting, and it was different from what my experience was. So I thought, well, I'm going to check with Dr. Jeff Smith because he knows all about this stuff, plant genetics and hybridizing and all those things. So I checked in with him, and what he said is the flip-flops between these kinds of plants are often tied to fantasy, which would be true with Everdena. He said, but not always. And if the fantasy gene is active or not active. So he said it's often tied to fantasy, and whether or not the fantasy gene is active or not active. If it's active, you get one plant, and if it's not active, you get the other. So you have two named plants that are switching back and forth based on the activity of just one gene And he said it's usually the fantasy gene if a fantasy's involved. So I really wanted to share that with you guys because I thought it was so interesting. And which takes us to my next thing in Tips and Treasures. I just want to tell you that I did get the most recent issue of African Violet magazine, and I've been wanting to share it with you, but there really hasn't been time. And now, I've said it somewhere, I've turned into my mother, I've said it somewhere and I can't find it. So, as soon as I do find it, I will share some articles and some info with you from the most recent edition. But of course, you know, I'm wearing one of my AVSA t-shirts today. You can always join the AVSA and then you'll get the magazine. And it won't matter if I forgot to tell you about it or lost the issue, didn't lose it. It's just here in the house and I can't find it. But today I have a really special treat for you. Dale Martins is going to be here in just a moment on camera with me. We're going to go back to the Illinois Stage Show in early April of this year, and I'm going to share with you the next episode that Dale and I filmed. In it, she's talking about Streptocarpus, and I think we may stay on the Streptocarpus theme this week and next week. We'll see how things go, but that's kind of my plan. So here's Dale, and I'll be right back. Hi you guys, I'm here with Dale Martins again. She is going to be talking to us now about some of her hybridizing efforts with Streptocarpus. Dale, welcome.
Thank you.
You're still here. We
here.
have the same clothes on. You guys, it's probably been another week or however long, but we're still here at the Illinois Stage Show in Moline, Illinois at the beginning of April. And Dale has just she has really, really interesting Streptocarpus. I will tell you, my very first Streptocarpus was one of yours, and it was Texas Hot Chili, which is still my all-time favorite. Yeah. And I must have had 4 of them. I killed them one after another. And so the first one I got was from Ginny McCann in Southern California. And eventually, I literally have gone through at least 4 of them, but I have one now.
Oh, good.
And it's growing. It hasn't bloomed. It's not quite, it likes the basement better than upstairs. So it's going to go back down to the basement this spring. But I never really had an interest in Streptocarpus until I saw Texas Hot Chili. And guys, I'll link to, I'll find a photo of it and link to that for you, because if you've been thinking about growing a Streptocarpus, this one might tip you over to want to do it. I think it was the yellow in the throat.
The red color.
The red.
In fact, J.C. Monk, J.C. and Lenora, when I lived in Texas, I attended their club in Houston, and he loved it. J.C. loved Texas Hot Chili. Just was really crazy about that plant. And in fact, when he passed away, Lenora had the Texas Hot Chili plant right near the casket. Yeah, he loved it. I bawled,
Of course.
Yeah.
Well, is Blue Mars one of yours too?
No, it isn't. It's an oldie, and it was one that I grew, and it's erroneously been, has given me credit for it, and I did not.
Okay.
No.
Okay, well that's interesting to know. So tell everybody, how did you were a violet grower,
Yes.
and then you're a violet hybridizer, and then the next thing we know, you're a Streptocarpus hybridizer. So how did all that happen, and how did you get started?
Well, Texas Hot Chili was done on purpose in that I wanted to create a smaller strep. And so what I had done was I had taken Streptocarpus Joker and I selfed it. And I took the smallest one and selfed that again. And then ended up having, oh my gosh, a red flower. And I was in shock seeing a red flower with this yellow throat. And I took it to an AVSA convention. I want to say it was the Florida convention. And I went around and showed the commercial growers, because I didn't know, is this new, is this different? Well, immediately I got offers.
Whoop, whoop, whoop.
Yeah, I got offers. Rob loved it, and lions loved it too. And in fact, I ended up, Sydney Serrano at that time, she approached me and she said, well, I'll buy that from you. And I said, well, I tell you what, in the future, I'll give you some baby plants. This is my only plant, let me send you. Well, so in the future I sent her a bunch of little baby plants, and she must have sent me $200 worth of miniature Syningas, because she knew I love miniature Syningas. So anyway, but I love Texas hot chili. And that's the first plant. I call myself the happy hybridizer, and I do the happy hybridizer's dance, and Texas hot chili was my first dance.
I bet it was a great dance, because it is a great plant.
But I wanted small. And so that's what I've been doing lately, is I've been breeding for smaller and smaller leaf size. And how that came about was Jaco Truder in South Africa sent seed to the Gesneriid Hybridizer Seed Fund of the Lilliputiana. It's a really
Teeny
tiny,
weeny.
yeah.
Teeny weeny.
And so I started using that in my breeding program. And I ended up, this was one of them. This is Heartland's White Gold. And that has Lilliputiana in the ancestry. And that's about as big as it gets. Bill Price entered one at the Gesneriid convention last year, and it was about that size, and it just is a bloomin' fool.
Well, and the leaves they're narrow, and it's really, guys, I hope you can see how beautiful the blossoms are, just really, really white with a little yellow in the throat, and there's like 1 million of them.
It's a good bloomer.
Yeah.
It's a terrific bloomer. And so it's got Lilliputiana, it does not get large, and people say to me, well, what's your definition of a compact strap? Well, to me, I don't want anything larger than a standard African violet. So, because I want African violet people to feel like they can grow them right next to their violets, and so I don't want something with an enormous leaf. So that's what I'm doing now. And then what happened was, it turns out that Lilliputiana has a mutation for variegation. And so I ended up with with red flowers. They're not quite like a Texas hot chili red, but they're more of a wine-ish.
Wine color.
But it's variegated. And Annie, I want you to look at the leaf edges. See how they're kind of a reddish charcoal?
Yes, I could see that actually even without my glasses. But
and that is a wonderful characteristic. And if I wanted, in this show here today, if I wanted to, I could take all these flowers off and enter it in the foliage class. And so that's the advantage.
That is really different.
Yeah.
Dana. I've never seen that.
Yeah.
This is like a new thing.
It is. It's a new thing. And
I saw it here first.
And it's very ornamental. I just love it. And I did use this as a parent, and I ended up getting a solid green leaf on the plant, but it's solid green with a black edge on the leaf. So I've got something, and I'm going to keep working.
So where do I sign up to grow out some of your seedlings? For you.
I tell you, it is a lot of fun. But this is Dale's Polar Lava, and I have a series called Polar, and they've got the variegated leaves, and they're compact in size. You know, this isn't bigger than a standard African violet.
No,
so.
it's in a 3-inch pot.
Yeah, it's in a 3. You don't want to put it in a larger one only because it doesn't need to be.
So now but there's like 80 million blossoms on that one, but not so many on this one. Is there?
And that's because of the variegation. Unfortunately, I don't know if it's linked genetically or what, but that's the problem with the variegated plants. Not only this one, but the larger ice and iced variegated plants is you're lucky to get 2 flowers per stem. And so what I need to do is try to cross this onto something like Gloria or Falling Stars, something with lots of bloom on it. And in fact, probably what I'm going to do is try to cross it with something like this. This is a new hybrid also.
Now this has got a really big leaf.
I know, that's the problem with it. It seems as though multi-flowers like that tend to come on big leaves.
Okay.
So what I need to do then is I need to take that flower and put that on here to try to get a higher blossom count.
Higher blossom count, but keep the variegation.
But the problem with the variegation, it's not like an African violet. With a violet, all you have to do is use a variegated mom. Well, even if I selfed this, I would be lucky to get 10% variegation.
Okay.
So, putting this pollen onto this plant, I might get 1 or 2 out of 100 with variegation, but I could end up getting a lot of flowers.
Okay. Well, tell us about this one. How you were telling me earlier. Tell them the name of this one. It's really fun, you guys. This is
Yeah, this is Dale's Orchid Wannabe, because it puts out this flower stem. This has a species as a parent. And so it puts out this flower stem, and then when that flower stem dies, then it put out another side angle, just like an orchid does. And so the judges, I don't know what the judges are going to think about it, but anyway, that's what it's doing, so I'm calling it Orchid Wannabe.
So it had blossoms like this going straight up?
Straight up.
And then when they were done, did you pinch them off?
No,
You just let it go,
started,
and then
it just started making another stem. So we'll see if that continues.
Okay. Well, this one has that sweet white blossom too, but it's got like a little, almost like a little lavender shading.
Yep,
Yeah, and
it
with the
does.
yellow throat.
Yeah.
Very cool.
So, but it's too big. You know, to me this is too big, but there are people who like big. Now, this one's not too bad. This has the same pollen parent, a species pollen parent, but the leaf isn't all that enormous on it.
Well, and this seems almost like a miniature. It just seems so, like if we look at that,
Yeah.
if we look, grab that one again. If we look at this one next to this one, I mean, this looks like the difference between a standard and a mini almost.
Yeah.
If we were talking about violets.
So we'll see what ends up happening. The problem with using purple is you get purple. So it ends up being 2 generations. And it takes a good 3 months for a strep seed pod to mature. And so by the time you get a full potential, you know, you've got 18 months of your life. So
That's a long time.
excuse me. Now, the what I do with fertilization and care is a lot of my streps are under T8 lights. They're under 2 sets of T8 lights.
We've been just talking about lighting on the podcast. So those are the smaller tubes,
Right.
but they are stronger in their wattage. Is that correct?
It seems to be, but the advantage for me is when I'm working on my plant stands under the T12s, there's a flicker, and I get a headache after a while. There's a flicker.
Okay.
I don't get that with the T8s.
Okay.
And the room is cooler. So since I switched some of my stands, the room doesn't get up to 88 or 90 even. It stays more like 85. So
Do you feel that the streps like it a little cooler than violets, Dale?
yes, they do. They'll start wilting at about 88. They'll start wilting. And then when they wilt, you don't do anything to them except maybe spritz them with room temperature water. Because if you add more water to the soil, they won't like that. They just need to be cooler, that's all.
Now, do you wick them?
Yes, these are all wicked, and I use the orchid fertilizer. I like my orchid fertilizer, and yeah, there's my wick. And I use acrylic. Yarn, and I only use the 1/8 of a teaspoon per gallon of the orchid fertilizer.
So what is this that you used for your slip pie?
Oh,
Pardon me for changing the subject.
that's that sticky saran wrap. That
Oh, I am so
peel
getting
and
some
stick.
of this.
Yeah, peel and
Guys,
stick.
this is very cool. As you just peeled it right off the pot.
Yeah. So, and then that way it can be watered during the show and it won't leak all over the table. But I don't foliar feed, and you can see how, I mean, my goodness, my leaves are nice and dark. And that's
Yeah.
only 1/8 of a teaspoon per gallon of the non-urea orchid fertilizers is what I use, like Better Grow, Grow More. Just a balanced, not a high bloom. And I think that makes a lot of difference.
Since you wick both your violets and your streps, do you find that the streps need a lighter mix, like with more perlite? in
That's
them?
an excellent question, because I actually use 1 cup of soil to 1 cup of perlite. It's really light. It's
Okay.
very, and that can be a problem because the pots are real light then. So if you've got a heavy strep, it's
Yeah,
gonna
they fall
yeah,
over,
it'll
I
fall
know.
off the reservoir. But yeah, so this is at least 50% perlite.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's more than you would add for your violets, definitely more.
Yes, violets can take the heavier soil.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, as a strep hybridizer, Dale, do you feel you have a specialty?
Well, it is going for the
For
compacts.
the small, that's what I was just thinking.
Yeah, and I
Is it-
would really like to get more into the variegated ones, but I really do need to increase the bloom count
Okay.
on them. Yeah.
So, excluding your own straps,
Oh.
do you have a favorite strap?
Well, actually, some of the species are fun. Strep dunnii is actually an orange. It's a crimson orange, and it's got one long leaf, about 3 feet long. The leaf color is kind of a grayish, and it just puts out just a zillion of these small brick crimson orange type flowers. I
Wow.
like that. And I was using Vandellurii. Vandellurii is scented. Some say it smells like creosote. I ended up creating several with scent. Heartland's Perfume is one of them, and It Makes Sense was being sold by Logis.
Yeah, I've heard of that one.
Yeah, It Makes Sense. And what I did was I took the flowers around to the club members, and then I took them to convention to ask people what they think of the scent. Because, and it's real interesting, women think it's floral and men don't think it's floral. I've had men say it smells like dirty socks, creosote, wet leather, and women say, oh, magnolias, jasmine. So there's a sex difference.
That's very
Oh, yeah.
interesting.
It's really,
That's very
really
interesting. Well, of your own hybrids, do you have a favorite?
Well, I do like Texas hot chili a lot. Yeah. Yeah.
It's
good
a
one.
great plant, you guys. I think it is. I mean, I remember talking to you about it, and you may not recall this conversation, but I do, because you told me that it would probably never be in anything bigger than a 3-inch pot, and that made all
Yeah,
the difference
yeah.
in my being able to grow it well. Because once I stopped trying to get it into a 4-inch pot, it was happy as a clam,
Yeah.
and it's in a 3-inch pot now.
And people grow that. I know in Texas, I'm hoping somebody in Texas enters it because it is a Texas hybridized plant.
Because you did it when you were in
Yeah.
Texas. Oh, perfect.
And Richard Nicholas grows it really well there. And so anyway, I'm really hoping that somebody shows it because it's a really good show plant.
That's
Excellent show
great.
plant.
Well, what advice would you give to someone who may have, a beginning hybridizer who might have some interest in trying to hybridize straps? What kind of advice would you give them?
Stay away from purple as a parent because it is so dominant. And as it is, it takes at least 14 months of your life to create a new strep hybrid, to see its full potential. And then if you've used purple, then you end up, just being at least another year. So this one happens to have a pink in its parentage. So I will use this, and I'm hoping then that the next generation has a pink. But stay away from purple.
Okay.
Yeah, and again, the garbage is where most of the plants should go. You really need to be particular. There are so many look-alike streps out there, a tremendous number of look-alike streps, so especially the purples.
So limit your collection?
Yes.
Limit your collection.
Limit your collection.
We talk about this a lot. The immortal words of Pauline Bartholomew.
Oh.
Limit your collection.
Yeah, and I knew her. She spoke in California.
I know. Well, I never got to meet her, but I mean, I was a member of her home club. I feel like I got to meet her because
Yeah.
everyone knew her,
Yeah.
except me. But you actually did meet her.
Yes, she came and spoke to our club a couple of times, and she was very perky and funny and fun. Yeah.
Oh, I imagine her that way.
Mhm.
I always have.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining us
Oh,
and for
you're very
sharing your
welcome.
struts with us. This is great. And you guys, I think I'm going to be able to convince Dale to talk to us a little bit longer on another episode about the Sininjas that she hybridizes. So I'll be right back. Isn't she awesome? She's so interesting, you know, and it's so interesting to me to hear about her process and how she works with her plants and how long. I had no idea it took that long for streps to grow on and grow on. I mean, we're talking a long time. I loved her tip, if you are interested in doing any hybridizing with streps, to really avoid the purples and blues there, because she said they're so dominant. And I hope you enjoyed hearing from her again. I just love having her on the podcast. And boy, I looked at the footage, you know, already before I'm sitting down with you here now. Boy, that was a rough weekend. I look pretty tired in that episode. But anyway, so now it's time to take a look at what's on the stands. And interestingly enough, you will see Texas hot chili at the time that we filmed back in April. It had not bloomed yet, so you guys hadn't seen it at that time, but you've seen it now. And you're going to see some interesting things this week. Some might make you kind of cringe. It's okay, it happens. And take a look. Well, it's time to take a look at what's on the stands. And here I am in the guest room. Nothing too exciting going on up here, guys. People, some of these plants look like people trying to bloom. Plants trying to bloom. Probably I need to do a little bit of grooming here. And Chiffon Masquerade is growing. It's really looking good. I'm excited about that one. Second shelf. Again, nothing too exciting here. Everybody growing, everybody looking happy. And third shelf. Again, nothing too exciting. But everybody's growing and everybody's looking pretty good. So let's go down to the basement. Well, here we are in the basement. Here's Pixie Blue just blooming away. And here is, this is supposed to be Frosty Frolic, but it's looking to me like it might be frozen in time, because that is not a lavender blossom. And here is yesterday's Valentine. Needs a little bit of grooming, and I think it needs a drink. Everybody else down here, again, nothing too exciting on this shelf. Let's take a quick look. Well, I take that back. There is something exciting on this shelf. Check it out. Our challenge leaf from Carol Lee, Ma's Winter Moon, and it's shooting up a little baby there. It's all white, so I'm going to let it go for quite a while, and we'll see how it does. And do you guys remember the sucker I took up off of Optimara, Michigan? That's it. It's gigantic. And if I'm not mistaken, right there is the sucker from Roulette. And it looks like it might be going to make it after all. I'm kind of excited about that. So things looking good in there. Here's this dome, and things are growing here too. The species leaves back in the back. Everybody looking pretty good back there. And the smaller ones up here, I think they look okay so far. So cross your fingers. Okay, let's look down here on the second shelf. Well, here we've got, here's Moonrays finally in bloom. Again, one little blossom on that one. And here is Laney. This is a standard trailer, and this is its first bloom for me. It's a double pink. I need to check and make sure it's blooming true, but I'm kind of liking how it's looking. And you guys, look at my Acacia. This is the best I've ever done with one. I'm really excited. My friend Julie gave me this. This is called My Precious. So I'm kind of really thrilled that it's growing in there. And here is Optimara Yellowstone just opening up. And you guys, look at all these blossoms. This is going to be a really prolific bloomer. Very excited about it. And I'm hoping the foliage is looking a little wonky right now, but I think I need to just disbud it and let it grow for a while. Well, more blossoms here on Radar's Magic. I think this is Radar's Magic. Oh no, I'm sorry, Party Pinafore. This one, you guys, wait until you see this. This is one that when I was at National, someone bought the only one that was blooming. And I said to Jan Davidson, do you have another one? And she did. This is another of Sundown Pittman's straps. It's called Radar's Tensie, and Jan told me that that's what he calls Hortense, his wife, Hortense Pittman. It is the most spectacular magenta pink with darker maroon veining in the neck and webbing and netting on the lower petals. It is just a stunner. I'm so excited that it's blooming and it's doing well. Let's take a look over at the strep shelf. Well, nothing too exciting going on over here. And obviously I have some cleanup to do here. But interestingly enough, I've kind of let this strep go, and it sort of looks like, I mean, I've never really seen a strep seed pod, but it sort of looks like maybe those are, and so now I'm thinking maybe I should just let them go. But you know, you guys just saw Dale Martin's, and this is the white Heartland's White Gold that she gifted to me back at the Illinois State Show. And this is one of her Polar series. This is Dale's Polar Berry. You guys have seen this bloom before. And you can see on this one as well as Polar Lava that she showed us during the interview. It's got this really interesting coppery dark edge on the leaves. I mean, I've never seen anything like that. It's so cool. Well, let's head upstairs and see what's going on in the sunroom. Guys, before we head upstairs, I just wanted to show you this plant. I'm on the other side of the big stand now. It's Optimara My Delight. It's one of the full-grown plants I brought back from National with me and isolated for a while down here. And it's been growing, and it's been growing well. And all of a sudden, I'm going to try to zoom in. I hope it stays in focus. I think it's a little bit out of focus, but I think you can get the idea. There is nothing actually wrong with this plant. The center is just tightened up. Now, I don't see any evidence of mites. I don't see anything that looks like it could be something horrifying, but I don't like the way this looks. This could just be it doesn't like my conditions. It could be it doesn't like the fertilizer I've been using. Could be a whole lot of things. But when I see something like this is one of the things that makes it very easy for me to limit my collection. I don't have the time or the inclination to fool around with this and try to figure out what it is. There are so many other wonderful plants waiting for me to grow them. So say goodbye to Optimara My Delight, and let's head upstairs to the sunroom. Well, here we are up in the sunroom, and here's Selena Dark Velvet, and I'm going to shift it. Whoa, I'm going to try to not knock it over. I want to bring it down so you can actually take a good look at it from the top. It is starting to grow and bloom really nicely. It has a great shape, as many of Hortense Pittman's plants do. It does need a little bit of grooming, but I'm thinking this one's a keeper. And there was quite a bit of discussion this week on African Violet Nerds on Facebook about this plant, Max Scorching Sun. Now, I've had this was potted up in February, and It's a semi, and it's got some interesting things going on. First of all, it is crown variegated. It's very interesting color and style of foliage. And can you see this leaf? It's like a double leaf. It's kind of a mutant sort of a leaf here. I don't really know. I don't know what's going on with that. But it has not even set a bud. It's got the beginnings of what looked to me to be a sucker in there, but no blossoms. So I'm threatening this one. If it doesn't shape up and fly right, it's gonna, or straighten up and fly right, I should say, it's going to have to go. So I wanted to show it to you closely. And I wanted to show you the same thing with this one, which is another one that I believe I probably potted up about the same time. Yes, February 23rd. This is Frosty Bubbles, another crown variegated plant, and growing quite nicely. Got more of a wagon wheel kind of style, not too tight. Symmetry, really quite nice. Not a bud in sight. So I am going to groom some leaves off of both of these, and if they don't get cracking, they're going to their great reward. All right, let's go back up here to the top shelf. I want to show you, this is Armageddon. Again, you guys have seen this. Saw it last week. This is a Russian plant, just a really, really interesting fantasy. And down here on the second shelf, I'm putting these back up on the top where they live. Down here on the second shelf, I shifted some of the calumnias around so that I had a little room to show you that. I've got lots of roots now there for the Aschenanthus obconicus. And if we walk around, some grooming I need to do here, but this, at the time that I filmed back in April with Dale, this is Texas Hot Chili, and it had not come into bloom yet, so you guys hadn't seen it. But these blossoms are all pretty much at the end of their life. But it's just got this, it's this beautiful red with this wonderful pink throat. And it's growing away. Multiple plants in here, but hanging out in a 3-inch pot, doing its thing. So it's still, I think, my all-time favorite strap. I really do love it. So let's take a look down here. Here's Rob's Wagga Wagga, just coming into bloom there. And here is Buckeye Celebrity Status. I have been waiting for it to bloom again. I just wanted to have it bloom one more time, but I do need to repot it. And this is my other plant of Armageddon. It needs to be turned. And it's just getting ready to open up as well. And let's go take a quick look at the big box violet. Well, I couldn't quite bring myself to disbud it. So here it is, trying to bloom. And really trying to bloom quite symmetrically. This one started, and this one, and then this one, and it's trying to go to town. But it does need to be disbudded, and it does need to be repotted. Unfortunately, there's probably not going to be a lot of that happening for me until September. But for now, this is the look at what's on the stands this week. I'll be right back. Okay, so you saw a plant really go away, but you also saw a really good reason for it to go. Again, most likely that might have been a repotting. It probably didn't like the basement. Whatever it was, I did not have the wherewithal and the time. You can see how many things need to be potted up from the trays. So, and that's probably not going to happen, as I mentioned, until September. Not much going to be happening here in terms of potting until then. I have this, it's like the last hurrah of summer, these dog days of summer here. And lots going on, lots of company, lots of friends. Gonna see a baseball game or maybe two, you never know. But August is always kind of a jam-packed month. But September will be calm, and I will be down there on the potting bench, and I'll try to capture a lot of it for you when it all happens. So anyway, time to get the bail money ready. But once again this week, nothing to really share with you in terms of a show coming up. There is already on Facebook some marketing and advertising about the Missouri Valley show that will happen later this year, and it'll be in Missouri. this year in St. Joseph, Missouri, if I'm not mistaken, but I will certainly get you all the details a little closer to the time. It will be a great show. If you are in that area, I would encourage you to go. So that's kind of it for today. It's time to keep moving forward. Thank you for joining me this week. Thank you for coming back every week. I'm still getting messages from those of you who have just discovered the podcast, and I just love that. I hope that you'll keep coming back and keep sharing it with your friends. And I hope that this week to come will be filled with all the things you love. Good growing. I'll see you next time.